Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk about something we all experience, but almost none of us want to talk about: failure. That's right, the big F word. From a young age, we're taught that failure is bad, something to be ashamed of, something to hide. We celebrate successes, we put wins on a pedestal, and we quietly sweep our mistakes under the rug. But what if I told you that this mindset is holding us back? What if our failures are actually our greatest teachers, disguised as disappointments? Think about it. When was the last time you openly shared a story about something you messed up? Not in a self-deprecating, funny way, but in a genuine, here's where I went wrong and what I learned from it kind of way. It's tough, right? We worrying about being judged, about looking incompetent or weak. This fear creates a culture of silence around failure, and that silence is incredibly isolating. It makes us feel like we're the only ones who ever struggle, the only ones who don't have it all figured out. But that's just not true. Every single successful person you admire has a long list of failures they had to overcome to get where they are. Let's take a look at some famous examples. Did you know that before he created his empire, Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper because his editor said he lacked imagination? Or that J.K. Rowling's manuscript for Harry Potter was rejected by 12 different publishers before one finally said yes. Imagine if they had let those rejections define them. Imagine if they had given up because they believed the narrative that failure was the end of the story. The world would be a very different place. Their stories aren't just about their eventual success. They are powerful testaments to their resilience in the face of repeated failure. They didn't just stumble upon success, they learned, adapted, and grew through their setbacks. The problem is, we only see the highlight reel. We see the billion-dollar company, not the countless failed startups that came before it. We see the Olympic gold medal, not the thousands of hours of grueling practice and the competitions that were lost along the way. This skewed perception creates unrealistic expectations for ourselves. We start to believe that the path to success is a straight, upward line, and when our own journey inevitably has dips and detours, we feel like we've done something wrong. The pressure to appear perfect is immense, especially in the age of social media, where everyone's life looks like a perfectly curated success story. But what if we started changing that narrative? What if we started treating failure not as an endpoint, but as a data point? When an experiment in a lab doesn't work, scientists don't throw up their hands and quit. They analyze the results, figure out what went wrong, adjust their hypothesis, and try again. They see the failure as valuable information that gets them one step closer to the right answer. We need to adopt that same scientific mindset in our own lives and careers. Think about your own experiences. I can tell you about a project I was so passionate about a few years ago. I poured my heart, soul, and a significant amount of money into it. I was convinced it was going to be a huge success, and then it flopped, completely. For a while, I was devastated. I felt like a total failure. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. But once the initial sting wore off, I forced myself to do a post-mortem. I looked at where I went wrong. My marketing was off, I hadn't done enough market research, and I had overestimated the demand. It was a painful process, but it was also incredibly enlightening. The lessons I learned from that massive failure were more valuable than any of the lessons I learned from my smaller successes. It taught me resilience, the importance of research, and how to manage my own expectations. That failure laid the groundwork for future projects that were actually successful. When we create spaces where it's safe to talk about our struggles, we do two amazing things. First, we reduce the stigma and the shame associated with not getting it right the first time. We realize that everyone is going through it, and we feel less alone. This fosters a sense of community and shared humanity. It's a huge relief to know you're not the only one. Second, and this is crucial, we create a massive, shared pool of knowledge. When you share your story of failure, you might be giving someone else the exact piece of information they need to avoid making the same mistake. Your experience becomes a lesson for the entire community. This is how we all learn and grow together, exponentially faster than if we were all trying to figure it out on our own in secret. This is especially important in workplaces and in teams. A company culture that punishes failure is a culture that stifles innovation. If employees are afraid to try new things because they might not work, they will stick to the safe, tried-and-true methods. And in a fast-changing world, that is a recipe for stagnation. The most innovative companies in the world are the ones that encourage experimentation. They understand that for every groundbreaking idea that works, there will be 9 that don't. They create psychological safety, so their teams feel empowered to take calculated risks, to fail, to learn from it, and to try again. They celebrate the lessons learned from failure, not just the ultimate successes. So, how can we start to normalize this in our own lives? It starts small. Start by being more open with a trusted friend or family member. The next time you're catching up, instead of just sharing the good news, try sharing something you struggled with recently and what you learned from it. You might be surprised by their reaction. Chances are, they'll respond with a story of their own. You can also change the way you react when someone else shares a failure with you. Instead of offering pity or platitudes, ask them questions like, "What did you learn from that experience?" Or, "What would you do differently next time?" This shifts the conversation from one of shame to one of growth and learning. Let's reframe failure. It's not the opposite of success, it's a part of success. It's the tuition you pay for experience. It's the feedback you need to get better. It's the proof that you are trying, that you are pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and that you are on the path to growth. The only true failure is the failure to learn from your mistakes. So let's make a pact to be more open, more honest, and more supportive of each other's entire journey, the peaks, the valleys, and everything in between. Let's start sharing our stories of failure, not as tales of defeat, but as badges of honor that show we were brave enough to try. Thank you so much for watching today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. Have you had an experience with failure that taught you a valuable lesson? Let's start the conversation. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content like this. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next one.